So in one of my recent videos, I went over the currently active Lunar Awakening event in Diablo 4, and I went over some of the easier ways to go about farming this event's reputation, but there are some significantly more optimal ways to go about farming this, and there's actually a really big reason to continue farming this event for the entirety of its duration, and that's what we're going to be going over in this video. And this event is going to be active until the 18th of this month, so you're still going to have a little over a week to farm this, and it's very much worth doing this because you can get some pretty ridiculous rewards from continuously farming this, including a very high or almost guaranteed chance to get legendary runes. Now, just for a quick overview, the Lunar Awakening event is completely focused around shrines. Pretty much all of the shrines in the game have been turned into these Lunar Awakening shrines. They look different, the effects they give you are buffed up by quite a bit, and they'll have a little purple symbol on them. Now, this event also has a reputation track where after you get all of the main rewards, you can infinitely farm additional bags of loot, which is one of the main things we're going to be focusing on in this video. But you gain this reputation by getting any of the shrine buffs and then just killing any enemies you can find. It also spawns one wave of enemies at the start, so you can get some reputation easily, but that's also where a majority of the reputation is going to come from, is min-maxing how many enemies you can kill while having a shrine buff active. And the most efficient way to go about farming the reputation for this event is to farm any of the dungeons that have the spider enemies within them, and more specifically, the spider hosts. So those big enemies that once you kill, they blow up into a bunch of smaller spiders. Those are what you're going to want to be looking for and killing when you have any shrine buff, because it seems like no matter what enemy you kill, it gives the same amount of reputation. It just seems like killing any singular enemy gives reputation. It gives basically the same amount. If you can get a shrine buff and go kill those big spider hosts and they pop out with like a dozen smaller little spiders, you kill all those, that's like killing just a dozen normal enemies. So you're just getting a ridiculous amount of reputation. And if you can get somewhat lucky and get well-placed shrines within these dungeons, you can sometimes get like a full reputation rank off one shrine just because of how many enemies you're actually killing within these dungeons. Now, I would also recommend you do these as nightmare dungeons. Most people at this point into the season will have a good amount of sigil dust, so you can just constantly craft a bunch of sigils and get the best dungeons you're looking for. And this will just allow you to get a ton of masterwork and material while you're doing this farm. You can go do it as the normal version of these dungeons, but you're going to be getting a lot less out of it overall. And some of the best dungeons being things like Blind Burrows, this is probably going to be one of the best. You have Saret's Lair, and then you have something like Deserted Underpass. So again, just any dungeon you're able to do that has these spider enemies within them and these spider hosts is what you're going to be looking for. And that's going to be the absolute most efficient way. But if you're trying to do other things throughout the game, you're trying to progress in other areas, doing open world content is also very good. You can go into Hell Tides and you'll usually find a handful of shrines in a single Hell Tide. So if you're farming those for different things, you can do that as well and still get a pretty good amount of reputation there. Or if you're still trying to farm, say, witch power upgrades, or you're trying to farm more occult gems, you can also go into the headhunt areas and look for any shrines within those zones, which you'll usually find one or more in every headhunt, and headhunts have really high density as well, so you'll be able to get a good amount of reputation there as well, even if you're not farming specifically spiders in those areas. And that brings us to the reason you're actually farming this, and that's the rewards. So first off, when you start this reputation track, you're going to have a bunch of main one-time earnable rewards that are only earnable once on your account, so they're a bit different from the seasonal reputation. And you get a bunch of different bags of loot, you get some cosmetics, then at the end you'll also get a resplendent spark. Now these reputation ranks are going to be quicker than the infinitely farmable reputation, which is one of the main things we're also looking at in this video. So you get all the main reputation tracks done, get tons of loot, resplendent sparks, some skins, and then after that you'll be able to infinitely farm additional bags of loot, and these are going to take a bit longer than the first reputation tracks you were getting. But if you get lucky in, say, some of these spider dungeons, you can legitimately get pretty close to a full reputation track of these infinite rewards on one shrine if you have a fast build and the shrine is placed correctly so you have enough enemies to actually go defeat while while you have the buff active. And every time you fill up the infinite reputation track, you're going to get a bag of loot. Now you open up this bag, it's going to give you a bunch of different things. It's going to give you piece of gear, random resources, and what you'd expect from a normal cache of loot. But then you're also going to get one or a couple of additional boxes. Now these additional boxes you open are going to give you a bunch of dungeon keys. So you can get things like nightmare dungeons, you can get some infernal horde keys, or the most common thing you're going to get is a random amount of entrance keys for the Undercity, or more specifically tributes for the Undercity. And I've been getting a ton of legendary tributes, but you also have a chance to get unique tributes. And those unique tributes have, I think, the highest chance to give you a mythic item of any content in the game. So those are really good if you can get them, albeit they seem a bit rare. But one of the main things you're getting outside of the keys from these bags is a ton of runes. You get a ton of runes from one of these boxes you're going to be opening up, and they seem to have a very high chance, almost a guaranteed chance, to get at least one legendary rune from these boxes. And you can commonly get more than one legendary rune from them as well. And if you haven't played a ton since runes have been added, a lot of the legendary runes are some of the most expensive and sought after items in the game, especially in season 7, because they're more rare. So getting just say a handful of legendary runes from some of these opening of these boxes can make you absurd amounts of gold, or can just give you the runes you're actually looking for, because resplendent sparks have actually been pretty easy to get this season, at least to get a handful of them, but the legendary runes have been so much harder, or just have taken a lot longer to obtain than the sparks themselves. So opening a bunch of these bags, getting a ton of pretty much guaranteed legendary runes is absurd for pretty much everything, because if you don't want those specific runes, you can also sell them, and there's still a handful of runes that are selling for like 1 billion gold a piece. I've spent probably like 8 billion gold on just buying runes to get all the mythics I want this season. These are legitimately some of the most lucrative bags of loot you can get in the entirety of this season. But that's pretty much the entirety of how you can go about farming this event the most efficient ways possible to be able to earn yourself ridiculous amounts of loot, including just crazy amounts of legendary runes. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.